I didn't really recognize this till I finished, but the dissertation is a mental and emotional and strategic journey. Again, I'm gonna say that again. The dissertation is a mental, emotional, and strategic journey. Recognize I didn't say anything about writing. I didn't say anything about a task. These are all the things that are happening that have nothing to do whatsoever with you writing your dissertation. Look, on this episode, we got to have a serious conversation. This is not going to be about citations, outlines, or methods, but about the most important part of the process, what's up here in your mind. Specifically, I want to talk about how your potential refusal to ask for help, take a new approach, or admit that you're stuck might be what's actually keeping you in the same place that you are right now. And I know this is not easy to hear, but if you're feeling like you're spinning your wheels, it might be time of letting go of doing what you've been doing and doing it how you've been doing it all on your own to getting some support or getting some insight. And so in today's episode from AB to the PhD show, we're going to talk about how to not let your stubbornness get and slow you down through the dissertation process. Because again, I know you want to be successful, and sometimes the way you've done it hasn't gotten to where you want to go. And so now I want to give you some strategy and insight on how to turn things around. And I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode from AB to the PhD show. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings. I am founder of Done Dissertation and host of the show. And at Done Dissertation, our goal is to help demystify the dissertation process so that you, the doctoral student, can write and defend your dissertation in record time. Today's episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Coaching Program. It is a coaching experience designed to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend your dissertation quickly. So if you need the community, you need the structure, you need the accountability, you need the feedback on your writing, you just need the strategy in order to finish your dissertation, I would invite you to schedule a complimentary consultation with the team to learn more about our program and to learn more about how we can help you all get to the finish line. So if you want to learn more, you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com, or you can scan the QR code that is here on the screen. All right, so let's get into today's episode, talking all things stubbornness. Look, I know you're a phenomenal doctoral student, but just trying to figure out and find your way with this thing. And so I know at times we could just feel like my way is going to work and I'm going to make sure I work it. And that might not always be the best route that you can go. And so I want to give you some strategy and some insight and some things to consider that you may not have thought about previously. And so we're going to go to the board real quick. And one of the things I want us to consider and think through right now, in the first piece of this, we're going to talk about through 5 steps and 5 strategies. The first one is understanding what I would call the hidden cost of I got it. And so number 1, so the hidden cost of I got it. Look, I know this might be your case, right? You might be someone in this boat, like saying, your phrase is like, oh, I'm not gonna figure this thing out. I'll figure it out because I got it. And that can work, right? But let's just be honest. I know that you're smart. I know that you're driven. And I know you're used to figuring things out. You're a doctoral student. Like, you didn't get to this point without that being kind of the case for you, right? And you probably pride yourself on being an independent person. And you may even subscribe to the idea, maybe in your doctoral program, that in order to finish, you have to be an independent scholar, where you have to do things all on your own. And you may be at a point where you've made it this far by being resourceful and pushing through, right? So when it comes to the dissertation, your instinct probably at the start is to just keep grinding, right? Then from there, you might just start Googling things and working in isolation, because the internal thought is that you should be able to do it by yourself and for yourself. But here's the truth that I do want to share with you. The dissertation isn't just a research project in the way you might be thinking about it, that you kind of just do things and it gets done. What you probably are experiencing now and recognizing, and I didn't really recognize this till I finished, but the dissertation is a mental and emotional and strategic journey. Again, I'm going to say that again. The dissertation is a mental, emotional, and strategic journey. Recognize I didn't say anything about writing. I didn't say anything about a task. These are all the things that are happening that have nothing to do whatsoever with you writing your dissertation. And because of this, what you start to recognize and see is that, and probably stubbornly, you're probably trying to do this whole thing alone. Maybe you don't have that accountability structure, the feedback help, all those type of things. You're trying to do it alone. And it's not only costing you time, but it's costing you your confidence, and it's costing you your peace of mind. And while time is important, peace of mind is critical. Because without peace of mind, it's hard to do this process, because it's, again, a mental process. And with that said, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing this thing, right? Because I know you are capable. You're watching this episode, you are more than capable of finishing your dissertation, because the fact that you're taking your time to watch content like this lets me know that you want to finish. And what I've come to learn is that being in this field for so long is that even your most famous, academically famous, however you want to quote it, scholars in their respective fields get support. I mean, just to give you a different type of example is I'll take an athlete, because in my background, I played basketball in college, right? And so an athlete that I admired how they have approached getting support is LeBron James. Like literally, you see interviews, he talks about spending $1 million on his body in various ways through, having masseuse, having a chef, all these things that have helped him maintain his body, because he know that was his number one asset to generating income, at the time. So he recognized that he needed support. Even your favorite, whoever it is, has a coach of some sort. Your favorite leader, they have people they get mentored by. Like everyone gets support in some form or fashion. And the folks who say that they don't, it's cap, because they got support somewhere, whether it's from a family member, a friend, official mentor, someone they paid to be their mentor, whatever it is. People have gotten help from someone to get to where they are, especially successful people. They have done this, and they usually are very open about this. But the ones who say that they haven't, that's a lie, because everybody's gotten help at some point to get to where they are. But what you have to recognize is that there is a cost for you to continuously say that I got it, because you having it might not be what's going to get you to the finish line. Maybe saying I got it is what's gotten you to ABD and what's keeping you stuck at ABD. So this is, again, something I want you to consider, that there is a hidden cost of being someone who's been stubbornly saying I got it and not getting help. The second thing is that you might start to recognize, and as we think about being stubborn, you start to easily see in people outside, and this is what we do for a lot of our clients, if this is the case, or I do in workshops, is that I help you to see that you are getting in your own way. So you are getting in your own way. Put 2 exclamation marks, because sometimes it's not a matter of fact of you being able to do it. It's like you're doing things that are actually at the detriment of you getting out of the process. And I want to give you some signs, because you may be wondering, am I that person? And so if you are, I want to give you some signs and things to consider, and how this might show up. And I'm going to give you some tactical things like around writing, that where this might show up, or the process is that one is that you might spend, or might feel like you're spending a lot of time rereading the same sections over and over, but not making any progress. And I'm gonna give you an example. Are you a person that every time you sit down to write, the first thing you do before you write is that you go back and read what you wrote yesterday? If that's you, you might be in that boat where you are getting in your own way. And here's why. We did this with our clients, and my clients didn't believe me at first. And then they started to implement this, and they recognized that it actually helps them finish faster. When you are engaging in the writing process, what I want you to start doing is that each time you sit down to write, you start from where you left off and move forward. At the end of a writing session, what I want you to do is put a comment. If you're using Word or Google Docs, whatever you're using, I want you to create a comment and put your thoughts on about what your last kind of thinking was and where you want to focus on for tomorrow's session. Save the comment, save the document, and move on and do something else, so that when you come back tomorrow or the next time you sit down to write, what you're going to do is reread that comment you left yourself and then continue to write. And you do this throughout until you have a complete rough draft of whatever you're working on. It might be the chapter, let's say, for instance. Then and only then at that point, you go back to reread and edit and clean things up. Because what a lot of you will do is that you reread and you start getting in your own way. You start rereading the previous sections and you start editing, and then the editing turns into deleting, and deleting turns into, oh gosh, I hate this. And you delete everything. And you're like, I'm back to square one. And then when I see you at the workshop, you say, oh, Dr. Goins, I'm back at square one. I start writing and I delete everything and I'm back to where I started. Look, at this point in the process in the game, that doesn't need to be you. So you have to recognize that sometimes you might be your own worst enemy and you might be getting in your way. Some other things you might signals that you might be getting in your way is that you have had the same to-do list for weeks. You might keep saying, I'm going to write chapter 3. It's going to be done next week. Look back at that list next week. I'm going to write chapter 3. It's going to be due next week. And each week you look at that list and that chapter 3 is still sitting there staring at you and you're staring at it. trying to figure out what you want to do. And it's like, what you gonna do? And you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I gotta figure something out. Right. And so like you have this back and forth exchange. That's how you know you might be getting your own way. Because maybe you have to figure out, well, why haven't I gotten the chapter done? It might be because I just didn't drill down another level. So maybe instead of saying writing chapter 3, I might say, hey, I have different tasks. One is writing the participant section. Maybe another one's writing the instrument section. Maybe another one's writing the data analysis section. So maybe you break it down into smaller components. Then that way, when you go to write, you just write and check off a box on each individual component of a chapter versus your to-do list is just being about the chapter getting done. And so another way that you might recognize that you might be getting in your own way is that you avoid asking your advisor questions because you're worried that you should already know them. We get this a lot. And this is why in the space at Done Dissertation, I promise you, one of our inherent kind of just ways we approach the work and the way we work with our clients, whether it's faculty when we work with them as dissertation chairs and or students when helping you out with your process, is that we want you to ask the questions that you never will feel comfortable asking in front of your colleagues. Because one of the things that I can't stand with how academia operates, it can make you feel like you have to know everything coming in. And I know for me as a first year doctoral, so I didn't know anything. I didn't understand the process, and I still have been learning. Like me being 10 years removed from the doctoral process, knowing what I know now, I could have done things a lot different. Like knowing about funding, I didn't recognize that people got their PhDs fully funded. Some of y'all on fully funded journals. I had no idea. I didn't know the game and rules of engagement. Like all these things matter. So I want you to be able to ask the questions that you might not feel comfortable with, but you might be getting your own way because you're avoiding asking your child questions because you're scared of that. And I know there are some inherent, places in terms of academia, you may be in one of those environments where you really can't ask certain questions. I get it. This is why we have a lot of the workshops and things that we do at Done Dissertation so that you can have the space to ask the question. Because if you don't, you might be getting in your own way. Then the last thing you can think about in terms of it, figuring out, am I getting in my own way, is recognizing and thinking about if you feel embarrassed or ashamed to admit that you're behind and or confused. Look, you've been working hard and still don't have any results to show. And if you might be in that point kind of nodding your head like, that might be me, then you might be recognizing that this might be your first step, is to recognize that, hey, I'm getting my own way and I may need to do something different. But you have to come to that realization. Sometimes it takes folks years to come to that realization, and you done spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in tuition and don't got a degree to show for it. So I'd rather you save the time, learn from this episode, and then go get some help, right? So you may come to a point where like, shoot, I need help. Let's say come to the Velocity program, get some support, because that's going to be really important for you all to be, able to get out of ABD land. And so real quick, guys, before we go to the next point, if you have liked what we are talking about so far, I would love for you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube, and hit the notification bell, because we have learned from our content and our analytics that only 10% of folks who watch our content are actually subscribed to our page. So if you can do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and if you're watching us on LinkedIn or Facebook, go ahead and follow us there as well. Again, and then do me the second huge favor, just hit the share button. Share this with somebody that that can provide value. Tag us with it. We'd love to connect with folks and speak with you also. Please feel free, to make sure that you tag us on your posts, because again, we want to make sure this content gets out to a larger audience. Now, as we're thinking about this episode for today in terms of thinking about how to get out of becoming stubborn, is that number 3 is that we have to recognize that letting go isn't weak, it's actually strategic. So again, letting go isn't weak, it's strategic. And you might be wondering, well, how is that the case? How is, letting go not weak? Because again, sometimes even culture, you might be in certain cultures where like giving up on something or letting go or asking for help is a sign of weakness. Like, no. This is not a sign of weakness. This is a sign of what you actually should be doing. And let me tell you again, your favorite people are getting help. And what I want to do is, as you're thinking about this letting go idea, I want to flip the script for a second, because I want to explain that letting go of doing it alone doesn't mean you're giving up. Because I think sometimes we have that innate thought around that issue. But however, it does mean that you're choosing efficiency over ego. So letting go is you choosing to be more efficient over you choosing your ego. That's a hard one to think about, though. I can't front. So sometimes I'd be like, shoot, I'm trying to figure it out myself, like on things. I get it. I'm there with you. Like me, we here with it. But sometimes we have to recognize that we have to let our ego and throw it out the window. And just to give an example, like when I wanted to start growing the YouTube page for Done Dissertation, I was putting out all this content, but I didn't understand how things went with the YouTube. And so I actually had at one point there was a person I interviewed for one of our episodes who was actually someone who is influencer on YouTube in particular, has hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And then I learned so much from them during our interview that I was like, let me set up a consultation with them. They're a doc student. I'm no person that is not willing to get some help. Like, because again, learning from expertise helps me become more efficient. I may have still learned all the things that she taught me in an hour session. I eventually probably would have learned it. It probably would have took me 2 years. She taught me in that 1 hour. I paid the money for the consultation and we moved forward. And then the page grew from there. Like, so some of these things sometimes we have to consider, but a lot of times we don't think so. And because if you think about it, any high achiever, whether it be your athletes, CEOs, or artists, they all have coaches. You think Beyonce, one of the biggest music artists in the world, doesn't have a vocal coach? Like, come on now. Like, she got a coach. If she got a coach, I can get a coach for something. You all can get support when our way has not worked. And again, it's not because they're weak. You wouldn't say Beyonce's weak, but it's because they recognize and they know that getting help and getting expertise to push them to a level where they're trying to get to will be the difference between them winning and losing. And again, you can hold on to your pride and stay where you are, or you can hold on to your completed dissertation. Just is what it is. So hold the pride on it, hold on to it, hold on to that pride tight, hold on to it tight if you want it. But if I were you, I would take that pride, let that joint go, and then I'd be trying to grab that degree and walk across that stage. That's just me. I don't know what you want to do, but I think that is something you really need to consider if you are trying to navigate and finish this process. So again, don't let that ego get in the way of you getting what you came here for. Just like in that video, I don't know if you've seen it with Denzel and Jamie Foxx. They're like interviewing, and Denzel's like, "I'm leaving here with something. I don't know what it is." He started grabbing the food tray, like, "I'm leaving here with something." Like, exactly. Like, you got to recognize that you're trying to leave this doctoral program with that degree, and so you want to make sure you do everything in your power to do so. So now, if we went over the first three, right? Hidden costs of I got it. You are getting in your own way and recognizing that letting go isn't weak, but it's strategic. Number 4 is something I want you to consider, and probably something I don't know if you thought about this, but it's happening, and I want you to think about this differently. Is that I want you to start rewriting your story about struggle. So I want you to rewrite your story about struggle. Because many of us, me included, have been taught that struggle means we're doing something meaningful. That if we're not suffering, we're not trying hard enough. But I've come to learn that that's not necessarily the truth. Struggle isn't the proof of your worth, and ease in doing something with ease isn't cheating either. But what if you allowed the process to be easier? What if you stopped, proving something and started progressing? There's no medal for most, exhausted doctoral student. Like, some people be like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I didn't write so much." Like, I hear this with faculty sometimes, like, "Oh my God, I got so many projects." Like, there ain't no award for that. And honestly, you don't even want to be at that point, because I'm not trying to let no job like drag me to the ground. And so, again, you need to kind of think through and re-envision what, your approach has been. Because I've come to learn, for my dissertation in my research area, I study high achieving students. And so in colleges in K through 12. And so what I come to learn from studying high achievers is that they are successful, one, because of the failures they have experienced. Like, I went through this exercise when I finished my dissertation. Is my chair asked me this, and I was like, it was hard at first, but she was like, if you had to describe and capture the phenomena of being a high achiever in one word, what would it be? And my response to her was failure. Because what I started to learn from these students I was studying is that they failed all the time. But the difference between them being a failure and them not finishing was that they continuously got up and tried to learn from the failure and then did something different with each iteration. Again, they didn't necessarily look at being experiencing a failure or experiencing a struggle as part of validating their worth, No, they saw it and reframed how they thought through that narrative about their story around struggle to be like, hey, ooh, I experienced that. It hurts a little bit, but I'm going to take that and then I'm going to do something different. Here's how I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to reflect and revise and redo and reimagine my story over and over again until, a lot of those behaviors became ones that allowed them to be successful. And so, again, for many of us, we may have to rewrite our story about struggle because maybe, particularly if we're in communities where, the struggle is real, like, being a Black person in America, struggle is just inherent in my experience. Growing up in society, being someone, a Black man with a doctoral degree, like all this stuff is a struggle for sure to get to where I've gotten to. But I've had to reframe that narrative because it can be easily stuck there with the struggle and recognize like, ooh, I need to struggle. And the struggle, if I don't have struggle, it ain't right. Like, no, stuff could be easy too. And it doesn't mean, if it's easy, doesn't mean I'm skating along. It just means that like I've mastered something related to whatever it is I'm focusing on. So we kind of have to sometimes just reframe how we're thinking through this journey. And then lastly, before we wrap up today's episode, I'm gonna give you one more that I want you to do. And this is what I would call you need to do a personal, what I call a personal check-in. And so what I want you to do with this personal check-in, I'm going to give you some questions to consider with this check-in with yourself. And this might be something that you can do as I'm talking through this, or just something that you do, save this recording for later and come back and do this for yourself. A couple of questions you want to ask yourself. Why am I refusing help even though I need it? This is an important question that you're going to have to ask yourself. So again, why am I refusing help when I need it? It's a question to consider. It might be some inherent things happening, and this is why you're refusing help at this point in time. And then another question I want to ask you, what could be possible for me if I got help? You never know. You might be recognizing like what's possible, because there may be something that you might learn by getting some help. And then why is fear holding me back from my goal? If you start thinking about these questions, it's going to be really important to consider, because again, it might be a particular reason why the fear is holding you back. So again, I want you to consider, and I'll bring this back up just so you can see it again. Think about through these questions and have your personal, what I'll call your personal check-in. Again, why am I refusing help? And I'll scroll this down a little so you can see better. Why am I refusing help? What could be possible for me if I get help? And then why is fear holding me back from my goal? A lot of times, y'all, it's not about the skill. It's about what the heck I'm thinking up here that holds me back. And for some of y'all, it might be that. And so, you have to recognize, what can I do differently? And for some of you all, you may have gotten to a point where you've been watching these videos for a year or two. We get people reach out to us like, yo, Dr. Goins, Renee, we've been watching y'all's videos for a year, 2 years, 3 years, forever. And I just never wanted to do anything about it and never got help. And then they finally get in our program and get the support and like, shoot, why didn't I do this 2 years ago? I said, we get that from our clients all the time. It's like, why didn't I do this sooner? And so if you're in that boat and you find like, hey, I actually need some support, I need some help, what I would do is invite you to apply to the Velocity Coaching Program to learn more about what we do and how we can help you get to the finish line. And so if this is something that you yourself are interested in, I would recommend you to schedule a complimentary consultation. You can go to www.velocitydissertation.com, or you can scan the QR code that is here on your screen. Because look, don't be so into like, oh, I got to do this my way and get the help that I need in order to, prevent yourself from getting the result. Like sometimes our stubbornness is holding us back from the goal that we want to achieve. And so if you've been in that boat, you're like, sure, I need help, but I ain't trying to pay. Like, look, you're paying with something. You're paying with time. You're paying with energy. You're paying with your peace of mind. And so there's a value to that, and there's a monetary value to that. And so our goal is to help you demystify the process and actually recoup your investment quickly, because we want you all to get these doctorates and get all the promotions and all the things that come along with it, because there is some economic opportunities that come with earning a doctorate. Trust and believe. And I will never tell you anything different because I know it to be true. There's opportunities that await you, but you have to finish this thing. And so sometimes what the difference between you finishing it or not is about how you've been thinking about the process and you seeking to get help. So again, if you are someone that needs help, scan the QR code that's here on the screen or go to www.velocitydissertation.com. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode. If this content has been helpful, let us know in the comments. Join our community. And if you're someone who's been writing your dissertation and need help with your academic writing, I also want to provide you a training called Elevate Your Academic Writing. You can get access to that by going to www.thedonedissertation.com/elevate. And that is here on your screen as well. So please make sure that you grab access to that training, because again, we're just trying to get you all the supports that you need to help you get to the finish line. And Elevate is one of those that can help you if you've been struggling with your academic writing. So with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode of From ABD to PhD Show. And until next time, I wish you all a done dissertation. Take care and have a great week.